everybody has their thing, like everybody has the theme that they really like. My favorite theme of all is Technic, right? I've been building Technic for 30 years, since Technic was a thing. That's why I've got the little Technic brick on my brick badge. 2017 was 40th anniversary, so 40 years Technic has existed. This is a really baller Technic set, right? So Brian got this for me for Christmas, and took me about 3 days to build it. This is the Land Rover. It's got a lot of really cool play features. It does have the hog steering, hand of God steering, right? It is just two-wheel steering, whereas a lot of Technic sets, cranes and things, end up being four-wheel steering. This is a really cool set. It's got some features that just make it stand out. For example, the tailgate is locked, right? But if you rotate the wheel, it unlocks, and it's got this cool spring mechanism with a elastic band, a Lego elastic band on there, that it's just very simple. It's just a slope and an elastic band. And just like a real door, because it's on a slope, if you push it closed, it gets past the edge of the slope and then it locks in place. And if you rotate it open, it'll open up again. So lots of really cool play features like that. You've got your mud escape panels that sit on the roof rack there. You've got some storage, additional storage with the signature Land Rover. I think I have it upside down actually, that's kind of funny. Signature Land Rover exterior storage capacity, and on this side, it's actually got a ladder. A little fold down ladder where you can climb up on top. It's like, like I have it on RVs and stuff. Those are just some of the really cool playability features. The hood opens up and you can see the engine, obviously. It's got a winch in front, and the winch, there's one of the things that I think we don't get to see very often is the use of that. It's like a 1x2, picture a 1x2 brick, but it's the rubber black one with the two cross axle holes in it, right? That Lego uses to bend things. In this case, and you can check it out on your own afterwards, but I'll explain it. If you look at where the winch is, so here's the winch, and here's the lever that releases the winch, right? They use that rubber piece connected on one axle and then connected to this lever to bend it. And if I release that by bending that whole piece, it'll let me pull the winch out. So it's a really cool way to prevent that from coming out, but not to actually have it geared. So Technic, we always think of, it's just gears, and one gear connected to another. Well, in this case, they're using a piece that has lots of different applications to bend Lego. And I think you don't really see that anywhere else but Technic. I think this is a really cool thing. And of course the pistons, they go up and down, and there's a series of cams, not me, but actual cams, underneath that raise and lower the six. It's an inline six engine, so it raises each one of those piston valves up and down as it turns. Which gets me to the really cool part, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but this is the most complex gearbox of any Lego set ever made. And if I open up in the back, you can kind of see some of the gearing and some of the engine components in there. It has a high and low gear, so afterwards you can come up and you can see inside it, there's this 2x2 round that if you rotate it, it's in low gear, and now it's in high gear. And what that's doing is it's using, has anybody seen the Constructions that have the black cross? It's like a wheel, but it's just the skeleton of the wheel, and they use them to spin each other together.
Oh, they're dog gears.
They're like dog gears, thank you. I can never think of a play word. But that is actually changing with another elastic band which gears are engaged. So it's using those dog gears to rotate up into high and into low gear. It's really, really neat. And then of course it's got your standard shifter. Now, if anybody remembers back, oh God, dating myself now, There was a Technic set called the Supercar. It was what, 8856, I think is what it was?
8880.
8880. Thank you. Man after my own heart. The Supercar had a 5-gear shift inside the car that would actually engage gears going from what would be first gear up to 5th gear, right? Or 6th gear, I think. But this has a very similar setup. It's got a drive, neutral, and reverse gear, and then it's got a high and low gear, and then the high and low shifter. So you can actually shift as you're going along. So if I'm rolling this on the floor and I'm feeling the resistance as I'm pushing it along, so it's pretty heavy on its own. It's probably 20 pounds on its own. But as I'm rolling it on the floor, I can go inside and shift both into high and low gear and shift up into the gears, and it will get easier and easier to push it along, have less resistance in higher gear and more resistance in lower gear. And that's indicative of 8880. It was just the same way. So it's a really, really cool, complex gearbox. It's not as complex as the tow truck. Anybody ever seen the big giant Technic tow truck? So when I built that, it was after I'd worked at Lego. And when I was working at Lego, I took a phone call from a woman who had bought that. And she had the same problem that I did when I built it, but I didn't realize it until later. That has a less complex gearing system than this. However, it's got 6 axles, or 3 axles, right? 6 wheels. And if in the process of building that, you happen to rotate one of the axles 180 degrees just because it was spinning around on its own axis, it wouldn't move. It would be trying to go forward and back at the same time, and that one was motorized. I haven't motorized this one yet, but I plan to. So even though that set comparatively was more complex in terms of the axle setup and making sure that everything was in perfect alignment, this is by far the most complex gearing system that they've produced, and it works. It works really, really well. And you can see as it's rolling along, the pistons raising and everything. It's just brilliant. It's brilliant. So obviously you can roll it forward when it's in reverse, but you know, it defeats the purpose. But so you can check it out. All the doors open, all the things open. The roof rack actually comes off, so you can take this whole assembly off, and the ladder will come off with it. It's just a really, really fun set. I know a lot of people balk at Technic. You know, it's not the same kind of Lego, and it's not, you know, it doesn't work the same way as System Brick, but as you can see, there's a lot of tiles and a lot of slopes and a lot of System Brick in here. Even the seats are brick built. They're brick built using the wing piece from Technic, and then the rest is just tiles and slopes and a few connectors. So this is really, honestly, it's probably one of my current favorite Technic sets, not just because I got it for Christmas, but it was fun to build, it was interesting, and when I built the big red crane, the, what is it, heavy, rough terrain crane, the big huge red one, that one was fun, and I really loved it, but it was a lot of work sitting there, right? A lot of work sitting down and working through it and getting through like the steps, and wow, like this was a lot of work, and I finally got it done, right? And I'm glad it's done, but now I can move on to the next bag or whatever. This was fun. It was a lot of fun. It's got a place in my heart and a place on my table next to my one living plant in my house. It's a succulent, so I can't kill it. But it's just a really good build. And retail price on this was what?
$199.99.
$200, all right? $200 for this. It's actually fatiguing me to hold it up here. It's like super heavy, it's super dense, but what an awesome, fun build. If you have somebody that you know that's into Technic, or maybe is at that teenage cusp and they're getting out of Lego, this is a really cool build for somebody to say, hey, you know what, why don't you try that Technic stuff? Because it's complex, it requires you to think, and if you're like me and you love understanding how things work and how gearing works, this is the set for you, right? Certainly, I think it's going to hold its value. It's got that whole, you know, the whole fact that it's got the Land Rover name on it, right? It's certainly going to be something that we see for a long time on the market. And even the doors, inside the doors, they've got stickers that you apply to make it look like actual doors. Yes.
Any printed pieces come with this, like are in the set at all?
I don't think there's any printed pieces. No, right? I'm checking. I think they're all stickers. They're all like Land Rover stickers. Yeah, no printed pieces. Tires are awesome. These tires are huge. This is a full-size spare, and even though it opens the door, I think it would be really cool to like, oh, I blew out a tire. I was in the Outback. I blew out a tire. You know. Also, it's got a dual front and rear suspension. So the springs that ship with Technic sets, it's got 2 per wheel. So it's got some serious beefy suspension you can see in those rocker arms. And I guess what you would refer to as the modern, this one has the modern, whatchamacallit, differential gear.
Yes.
This has the newer differential, which if anybody knows anything about cars, a differential lets the wheels spin independent of one another, right? Left and right, front and back. So this has the new version of that, and it works really, really well. So really fun. It was a blast to build. It certainly comes out often enough, and I mess around with it constantly. Anybody that wants to check it out, I think you'll really enjoy it. Even the mechanism that opens and closes the doors. I don't know if you can see from there, but there's a 2-stage lever inside that actually hinges the doors open and closed. Works really, really smooth, and you know, when they thought this one out, they did a great job. Everything, all the details, tip to tip. I think it's a really fun build. So that's it.
Woo!